Hello everyone, and welcome from this September release, the version 5.99, and it's a release that is full of new stuff, improvements, announcements. You will see that many things happens in September, especially in France. It's kind of a tradition that, summer is rather calm, and then everything is packed in September. So let's talk first about what's going on in our ecosystem and what's up. The first announcements, which are pretty good for us, and I'm rather proud of it, is the fact that we are part of the latest market guide for virtualization, for server virtualization from Gartner, in the list of the representative vendor, which is really important. And the other good news is if you want to read that guide, in fact, now you can. You just click on the link and you can access to the content of the guide by just registering it. And you will see the list of, those players that are, as representative vendors. And in those times of, Broadcom VMware threats and problems, this gives you a neutral way to see the possible alternatives from a third party. So that's important, and for the first time, we are able to provide you a free copy. So feel free to download it, to read it, and see what's going on. Let's move on the Protectly partnership. So if you're not aware, Protectly is building small network / compute appliances, small PCs, if you like mini PCs. And we just had the latest Vault model they have. So they sent it to me, which is great. And I had time to make all the tests I need to validate it. And the great news is it's shipped with XCP-ng pre-installed. So when you purchase one, you can select to get XCP-ng on it. And I had the version with 2 SFP ports, SFP plus ports. So I managed to install a dual LACP on my home switch with 10 gig link. So it's very convenient. And you could use the other ports to do whatever you like. There are like 2.5 gig copper NIC ports using Intel chips. So both Intel's as all the NICs, which is very stable, works very well. So it's not Realtek or something like that. So the drivers works perfectly. There's no problem, and you can use, if you like, PCI pass-through to attach directly a NIC to a VM if you want to make specific stuff inside. It works. I made the test. So pretty neat machine. Works really well, passive, and could be shipped directly with XCP-ng, so you don't even have to make the installation, and it works out of the box. So pretty proud to have this new partnership. I mean, we've been partners since, I think, like 4 years or so with the previous Vault models, but now those models are far more recent, and frankly, I really like the SFP plus ports. Moving on, this time on the alike story. So we have users using XCP-ng or even Xen server with a backup software called Alike, coming from Quadrix software. And sadly, we heard that Quadrix software had to shut down all the operations. So we are here to assist as far as we can to transition people running on Alike to our solution. So we provide all the needed information, also a special 6 months free trial for people running on Alike to make the transition smoother. So we explain a bit all our backup capabilities and so on. So if you're interested as an Alike customer, just let us know. We'll help you to make the transition. Okay, so for XCP-ng, great news is the RC2 was out like few weeks ago, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And so that's the final app because, in fact, that's the latest release before the official one. We made so many tests, automated tests, manual tests, a lot of CI. It's like thousands of tests, of runs, hundreds of CI cycles, and so on. So we really took time to make it, tested in all different scenarios. And that's why that's the last RC, because we're pretty happy about it. And we should have the final version for this week. So expect 8.3 to be released very, very, very soon. Switching to Xen and RISC-V, so we have some news on the RISC-V porting Xen on RISC-V architecture. So if you don't remember, RISC-V is a CPU architecture, like a bit ARM. It's not that different, it's a bit different. And the main difference is it's an open hardware architecture, meaning it's meant to be developed in a fully open fashion, like open source, but for hardware. So therefore, we call that open hardware. And in this blog post, if you want to learn about what's up, because as a reminder, we are at Vates spearheading the effort to get the port to the RISC-V platform. So we have some news every 6 months or so, and it's important to understand all the efforts we do in that direction. It's also a commitment that we want to, not just use open source project, but we are also contributing to those projects. And it's moving forward. It's not for tomorrow, obviously, because first, the lack of hardware right now, that could be a server, virtualization server chips. So basically, it's working for the future, but that's really interesting to have, knowledge and leading the efforts to do it. Another news regarding Vates, we have a lot of new people right now, and I wanted to share that with you, that we kind of tripled in size, in fact, in the last 2 years. We've been from 20 to 60 people, and frankly, it's just the beginning. To give you an order of magnitude, just this month, in September, we had 12 new people coming to the company. So as you can see, it's growing pretty fast, and we continue to go that way with our growth, mostly thanks to Broadcom again. That's not new, but VMware is still providing constant, a stream of users that want to switch. So thanks to that, we are able to grow, obviously in terms of revenue, but we invest 100% of that revenue to be able to keep up, and even more than keeping up, to be able to provide improvement faster than ever. So that's also why every month you're seeing bigger and bigger Xen Orchestra releases and so on, because we are able to have bigger teams and work faster than before. And we are reaching levels where we never reached, despite Vates is not a new company. We've been created in 2012, but we had like a steady growth in the last 10 years, 11 years, but now things are, having another dimension. So that's really exciting times, and there's so many things that we could now move forward in parallel, and we are happy about this, and this will continue to accelerate. Talking about that, we are also planning to provide more services for our customers, because as we have also more customers, we also have bigger customers, like very big customers. And those customers will love to have extra services beyond the classical support. They want, to have people to deal with architecture questions, technical account managers to answer all the questions, and so on. So we are working on getting those extra services to deal with those companies, to be sure we have, we can give everything they need for getting XCP and Xen Orchestra running the entire data centers, because right now we're talking with customers with hundreds or thousands of physical hosts between multiple data centers. So we need to have dedicated people to help them to do, transition from VMware, but also answering all the architecture/hardware questions they might have, network, and so on. So that's coming before the end of the year. We'll announce it, which is a right fit for our biggest customers. So let's switch to the Xen Orchestra release by itself. We'll talk about backups first. As usual, backup are still, critical and center of most of our efforts. And this month we are delivering something called chain backups. So basically the idea is you create a sequence, and the sequence will be order list of your existing backup jobs. So for example, you want to use your regular backup job locally to your local data center, and then you want to mirror this backup to an S3 repository that could be, I don't know, to the cloud or whatnot. So you can do that before you had to find the right time to start the mirror backup job, and being sure it won't start before the regular one locally had finished. And now that's not even a concern anymore. You just said, I want this backup job, and when it's finished, you can do this other backup job, and so on and so on. And it works also if you mix, I don't know, regular jobs plus then when it's done, replication. So this means you can organize your backup jobs in a way that wasn't possible before, making it even simple to have a, let's say, complex but powerful backup strategy. So the UI is rather simple. You create a new sequence. You select your existing backup jobs, and that's it. That's really, really simple. And you can see in the backup view the schedule for the sequence and so on. We also added more details in the existing backup view for your existing jobs. So for example, now you can see without even editing the job, the details of the concurrency, the NBD connections, the timeout, all the advanced options that you might have, for example, set. And now you can see them directly outside the job without having to edit it, just to see what you have. So it's simple, but still really useful when you have many jobs with really different capabilities. So that's clearly an example. You will probably never have all those advanced settings set at once, but at least you will have all those information in one place. Let's switch to XO6, the new UI we're working on. As a reminder, if you are using XOA, you could just add /v6 at the end of the URL of your existing XOA. You will directly access the new UI. If you run on the sources, you need to build it, and you can build it with this command line from the XO root folder, and then having access to the v6 endpoint. So what we did first we updated the design system color. So basically we had different mode, like light mode, dark mode, and we decided after some feedback to slightly improve. So it's not a huge difference. We keep the existing tones, but it's improvement for different level of colors, which is rather important to be sure that everything is visible and so on. So those are the colors in the dark mode after modification, and those are in light mode after modification. So it's subtle. It's still keep the existing theme, but make it even better with a better gradient of colors and so on. The biggest, I would say, visible change this month is the dashboard view. As you maybe remind that last month we had the first dashboard view, but it was like only few cards, so we added many cards. And this time we added more of them. It's not yet complete, as you can see, but still it starts to really looks like a dashboard, and we'll explain all the new cards we added and why it's not just filling content with new card, but truly helpful information that we carefully thought to add. So the first one is the backup issue panel. So it's like for all your recent jobs, you have 3 dots, and the last dots are the last 3 job execution. So if you had an issue in the last job or the job before and so on, you will quickly see. So that's clearly an example with fail and warning jobs and successful jobs, but usually it should be a green check for the last 3. But if there is something that happened during any last 3 of them, you will quickly see it, just by looking at that. So that's really helpful to at a glance to see if there is any problem with the backup. The other interesting one is VM protection. So VM protection is a panel providing you a list of VMs that are protected in a job but not protected, or not in a job at all. So just to provide you what it means, a VM that is protected is a VM that has at least had 1 active job successful during the last execution. So it means even if you lose this VM, you had a successful backup at least once for the last execution. So it means you will be able to restore the VM. So that's why it's protected. Unprotected means, sure, the VM is in a job, but the schedule is not enabled, or the last execution of the VM failed. So it's not great, and that's why it's orange, because it's a warning. It's not completely protected. And finally, if a VM is not in a job, then obviously you won't have backup for this VM. So it's right, it might be okay, but at least now you know the number of VMs that are protected or not. So it might depend on some condition. This is a screenshot on our lab, so it's rather logical. But the donut here will automatically show you the proportion of VMs that are saved or not saved. You have also now the size of the space used on your S3 backup repository, which is rather important since most of the time you will pay for the size. So that's why we put that as a dedicated card. And also you have a card dedicated to the resource overview, meaning for the entire infrastructure, how many CPUs you have, how much storage, and how much memory. So that's like we had in the previous dashboard, but then in the new one in the V6. Regarding XO Lite, we are moving on implementing the network view. So you should be able to add networks and so on. So it's just mockups right now, but I wanted to share that with you. So directly on the host with the network tab, you could just see all the networks, have all the information you have, click on a network, get all the details, create a new network, and so on and so on. So what's great about this is the fact that our UX designer knew how it worked with VMware. So she's really helping to find a way to display stuff in a manner that would make sense. And if you are using VMware, trying to give you some comparable stuff, it's not the thing to make a revolution. It's trying to be sure we could do a transition from something else. So work in progress. Mockups are moving, and then we hope to get that integrated in XO Lite, so you could even configure the network from there. So now let's switch to XOA. So as a reminder, XOA is the Xen Orchestra virtual appliance that we distribute if you are a customer, and it's meant to have the environment set up turnkey as you just start it, and you have everything ready to work on. We updated, and we have also release channels, and the stable release channel is now at the version from last month. Still a warning on CBT. It works, but as new feature we rolling out, stay careful and do not switch everything to CBT. Just start with some few jobs, few VMs to be sure it doesn't cause any issue, and keep us posted. We made many bug fixes, mostly because on the way the interaction between the tool stack, the storage stack, and Xen Orchestra. So we start to have some confidence about it, but still it's rather fresh, I would say. So if you want to use it, just be careful to not do it on the entire infrastructure at once. It has been required by some customers to have to configure NTP on deploy. So until then, we were using default NTP servers using Crony. We switched to systemd timedctl, and which is like more lightweight NTP client. And if you want to deploy Xen Orchestra with your own NTP servers, now you can do so. You will keep the external one as fallback. But for people, for example, we have more and more customers doing Airgap deployments. They want to use their own internal NTP servers. So now you can even deploy Xen Orchestra with custom NTP servers directly. We also rebuilt XOA with the latest Debian updates, with the NTP capabilities and everything to be fully up to date, like Xen Orchestra 2. So if you want to deploy a new, fresh Xen Orchestra, you will have everything bundled, ready to move forward. Let's switch to XOCLI. As a reminder, XOCLI is the command line that might use the REST API or the JSON RPC API. And this time we're talking about a feature which is really convenient from the CLI, the capability to download or upload virtual disks directly from the command line. And this gives you the an estimation of the time left to make the import or export. So it works both ways, and it's really useful to see what's going on when you do a VHD import, for example. Regarding the REST API, so also it's important to remember that the REST API is now doing more things than before, because XO6 is relying on the REST API and not on the JSON RPC API anymore. We made some changes into this API. We had a dedicated alarms endpoint to be able to list all the alarms or get the specific request on a specific alarm UID. And so basically those changes were made in the dashboard endpoint, because when you see the XO6 dashboard view, in fact, it's requesting the /dashboard endpoint, providing all the information we need, as we've seen before, the backups repository size for S3, protection status for VMs, overview of all the resource usage, and so on and so on and so on. So that's basically if you want to get all the dashboard info from the CLI or by using an external tool that will do and get HTTP requests, you can do so. So that's also one goal of, we are not building just an UI with XO6, we are also building all the components you need to integrate that into your own system. Regarding Airgap, we mostly updated our documentation. Now it supports to deploy Xen Orchestra in a fully Airgap environment. Our deploy script could be downloaded locally and then used to import the XVA file that we gave you with everything pre-registered on it. So if you need that, just contact us. We could provide you the XOA that is pre-registered, bound to your license, so you don't need any internet connection to deploy it into your fully Airgap environments. And finally, the last section, which is the Misc section, which is basically improvements for the existing UI. So we add in the network view, the VLAN search. You can, in Xen Orchestra, you have a search field now available in the network. And in the search field, you can enter VLAN, for example, the number of the VLAN you are seeking. If you have many, many networks, as we have bigger and bigger customers, they start to have dozens and dozens of networks. And so it's easier to find exactly one specific network among all the others by just using a search. And it's also useful in the UI. You can sort by VLAN number if you want to seek for a specific network order for convenience reasons. The next thing is related to, let's say, a legacy issue. I don't know exactly how to call that, but if you install XCP like before 8.2.1, the TLS key, the certificate, basically the key for the certificate that is pre-configured is too small for many reasons, like security reasons and so on. It needs to be at least 2048 bits long. And before going to 8.3, you need to regen it. So if you plan to go to 8.3 when it will be out, you will see this warning on your existing 8.2. You will have to do the operation. So it's explained here, and in our release blog post, we'll explain that in details, and in the prerequisites you will have a list of things to check to upgrade without any problem. I mean, you will be able to upgrade if you don't do that before, but this will be an extra step after the installation to make it work again. So it's better to do it before, then when you migrate, there's no surprises. This is also a user request to display in the network list the bound mode. So basically, XCP supports active-active, active-passive, and LACP bound modes. And sometimes you don't remember which one you choose. So that's why we decided to add a new row called bound mode, so you could see which mode there is. So it's convenient, and it was not too complex to add. So that's why we did it for this release. Switching to Netbox. Netbox is, the IPAM you might know, which is a tool used to store which IP addresses are used, the machines are in the rack, and other things. We have a pretty good plugin that syncs all the IP addresses, VM names, description disks, and so on to Netbox. But 2 months ago already, we had some problems to make it compatible to Netbox 4.0 because they broke so many things without documenting it. So we had to discover the details how to make it work for the version 4. And they, I would not say did it again, but somehow they broke new stuff, but this is why it was documented. And they changed, for example, that the unit for the disk size came from megabytes to gigabytes, so things like this. So we had to kind of structure our code to be able to support many Netbox versions, because version 3 has to be supported while we have version 4 and now version 4.1. So it starts to be a bit more complex, but we kind of branch our code to be able to support all those versions correctly. So it's a reasonable amount of work to maintain this, but it works so well, and we are really happy about this plugin because, and no, so many users and customers also really happy about it. Just to give you an example, you go to Netbox to see which IP you could use in which range. You see the how busy is the range already. You can select only the free IP address. You go in Xen Orchestra, you take this address to configure the VM, and as soon as the VM got the tools, the IP address will be synchronized to Netbox, and you will see your range filled with the new IP address. So it's really convenient, especially when you work with a team, and then you could use IP addresses while being sure you're not reusing them or pinging and so on, because you are kind of confident that everything is synchronized to Netbox, which become the source of truth. And finally, the last plus is the ability to remove some XO tasks. So XO tasks, as a reminder, are tasks that are not tasks from XCP-ng directly, like Zappy tasks. So they are directly tasks from Xen Orchestra, and more will replace all the Zappy tasks being inside XO tasks, because XO tasks could be more complex, contain subtasks, and also when you do, for example, a rolling pull updates, it's a long sync task with many Zappy tasks inside it and so on. So we continue to improve that. We have many people reporting some like failed tasks and so on. So we are investigating, but until then, we added a button to remove them. So in case you are bothered by them, you can just remove it, and that's it. Well, that's it. As you can see, so many announcements and so many things for this month of September. I hope you liked it. And just remember that as we are growing very, very fast, things will not slow down. That will be the opposite. So eager to present you the release of the next month with all the announcements. Probably we'll discuss about XCP 8.3 because it will be out before the next Xen Orchestra release. So we'll also make an announcement about it. And we have also other exciting stuff like working with public cloud providers using XCP-ng and Xen Orchestra in their backend instead of VMware. So, exciting stuff to discuss next month. I'm eager to be there. And until then, have a great month. Bye-bye.